Okay, namaste everybody. Welcome to this particular talk on Hatha Yoga and Sex. And it's a very interesting topic, and the whole idea is to expand on our understanding on the reality of Hatha Yoga, as many people claim that they are practicing some form of Hatha Yoga one way or another, and perhaps we can say that this is one of the most popular form of yoga that is being proclaimed by many that they are practicing. So I thought I want to really elucidate the nature of this particular practice and standard view based on ancient texts, primarily coming from Hatha Yoga Pitaka, and to allow you to have a higher level of appreciation on the nature of this practice. And perhaps after this particular lecture, you have to rethink about really, are you really practicing Hatha Yoga? Okay. And because this is a very expensive kind of a discussion, which requires huge amount of different knowledge coming from tantric ideas, coming from the nature of Hatha Yoga practice, Buddhist, or you can say Buddhist philosophy, that was all integrated and compiled by the author of Hatha Dipika, Swatma Rama himself. So I will only say I'm introducing this particular idea. I'm not trying to teach this, but I'm trying to bring about the nature of these two content within the context of Hatha Yoga. Then that perhaps will lead you to look more into this subject, and maybe in the future we can look at the various tools, the various practices that has been given in the text in the future, that we can sort of use today's lecture as the foundation, as the basis for our future discussion to go deeper into the nature of Hatha Yoga practice. So one of the misunderstanding of Hatha Yoga, because when we say yoga, many people, have this idea that they are practiced by the celibates. And the reality is far from that, especially coming from the Hatha Yoga tradition. Now, when you look at Raj Yoga, like Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, then you have this idea that it is practiced by monkhood or some kind of a sannyasin, renunciate, But this is definitely not the same, when we look at the Hatha Yoga tradition. Now, there are various narrative of yogic sex coming from different Puranas in the Indian scriptures. And we have the idea of Shiva and Parvati. And in this narrative, Parvati, from when she was very young, she already fell in love with Shiva, and and she was trying to get attention of Shiva, and she becomes somewhat like a servant, serving Shiva in many ways. But Shiva was in this deep state of samadhi and not noticing anything around. And so Parvati, she went into like millions of years of yogic practices. We call this the tapas, and she went into a high state of yogic practices, and eventually her energy was moving, was vibrating into Shiva's samadhi consciousness. And then, Shiva awakened, and they married while making love. This is one of the narratives. And then the other narrative is Shiva and Mohini. Yeah, Mohini is a manifestation of Vishnu, and this manifestation of Vishnu in a very, very attractive, seductive woman. Yeah, and union with Shiva. Okay, so this is another narrative. Yeah, so Mohini is the, you can say, the female manifestation of Vishnu. Yeah, and then we have another narrative that is talking about Shiva and Vishnu in the form of Mohini, seducing yogis and their consorts. Yeah, in the Deodara forest. And this is a very interesting narrative where Shiva is almost naked, acting as a beggar into this forest where there is a group or a sangha, a community of yogis with their wives practicing different kinds of tapas. And Shiva was wanting to give them more instruction or give them the higher state of yoga. So requested Vishnu to come into the form of Mohini. So when they go into this forest, yeah, Shiva seduced all the women and Mohini seduced all the men. Okay, and this also has a lot of implication into the different ways of depicting the Hindu deity statue later on. Yeah, as we look, as I show you the different forms of sculptures that came out of this kind of story. And the last one is coming from both the Buddhist and the Hindu traditions of 84 Mahasiddhas. And Mahasiddhas means yogis with accomplishments. Yeah. So what kind of accomplishments? Usually is some kind of a supernatural power. So 84 Mahasiddhas are 84 great accomplished yogis. Yeah. So that's what 84 Mahasiddhas means. And out of the 84, I would say about 80 of them, they are non-renunciate. Okay. They are householder. Yeah, they do not belong to any kind of monastic community. So also it's interesting to note that there are 4 of these Mahasiddhas who are women, okay, accomplished yoginis, yeah, women who accomplish the higher state of yoga. So the Hatha Yoga and Sex, so this figure is a figure of in the Tibetan or Vajrayana, we say this is in the form of Kuntuzampo, and this is a representation of a communion of, you can say, a yogini, yeah, with the male principle. Yeah, so there is that yin yang that is going on, male female that is going on, and this is actually one of the primordial Buddha, yeah, you can say, yeah, in Vajrayana tradition, yeah, or the Tantric Buddhist tradition. This depiction is one of the highest state of yoga. So I'm just going to leave it as that, and then we come into a few things before we get into the real discussion of Hatha Yoga and Sex, is to go behind to have a little bit of a background. Yeah, so most of the Hatha Yoga text has no mentions of yamas and niyamas, and this you might already know in Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, that has to do with some kind of precepts, yeah, or some kind of a guideline and rules about social order, about personal behavior. But in most of the Hatha Yoga texts, they do not have 8 limbs. Yeah, so many have 6 limbs or 7 limbs which actually do not even discuss yamas and niyamas. So this is something that you got to know. And especially in this text of Hatha Yoga Dipika, that is compiled by Swamarama, yeah, there is mention, but there is no focused discussion on yamas and niyamas, okay? And then the two common goals of Hatha Yoga, normally we can classify into two. One is to accomplish some form of a siddhis, which is supernatural power, and the other is moksha, which means liberation. Okay, so these consistently, I would say, in a lot of Hatha Yoga texts, you consistently see these two goals. Yeah, a lot of practices has when they describe the benefit of doing some kind of a practice, they always look from the fact that you can obtain some kind of a power, or you can immediately achieve liberation. Okay, so believe that one can enjoy all pleasures in the world and still be liberated. So this is the underlying assumption of someone who has really accomplished Hatha Yoga. And again, we see this very clearly in Hatha Yoga Pratipika. Yeah, preserving the bindu and force it to enter Sushumna. So here, the bindu, yeah, there are many interpretations what a bindu is. So typically, a bindu means the life essence, yeah, the life essence. And a lot of time, because the text actually tilt towards looking at a male practitioner, so the bindu becomes the semen, yeah, but not necessarily so, yeah, because we do know that this practice can be accomplished by both men and women. So I'll just leave bindu as some kind of a life essence, okay? Badroli Muda as the key disguise of sexual union. So there are about 10 mudras that has been prescribed in Hatha Yoga Pratipika. But when they mention Badroli Mudra, not only in Hatha Pratipika, but in many different Hatha Yoga texts, when Badroli Mudra is being mentioned, a lot of time there is a disguise of sexual union between the male and the female practitioner. So when you see Badroli Mudra, yeah, so there is that connotation. So this is something that we need to have at the back of our mind. And male and female can both practice and achieve the highest state of Hatha Yoga. So this also is mentioned in the text. Now, we have to have a little bit of background and idea before we come into this kind of practice, okay? So we want to go back to Indian antiquity, where we look at what is the primary belief, yeah, of ancient medieval Indian time, okay? There is this concept of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma has to do with the belief that there is this universal covering kind of a principle and law that is eternal, yeah, that is eternal. There is a kind of a teaching, you can say, or principle, or generally we can say dharma, yeah, that governs our life, okay? So you can say Sanatana Dharma is sort of like a belief that there is a set of universal truth, yeah, that governs human life. And therefore, one should really seek this universal principle and understand this universal reality. Yeah, so there is that is at the background. So you can say in Indian medieval time, antiquity time, this is very much cherished as one of the purpose and goal. Yeah, and in the Vedic tradition, we talk about the Four Purushatas, and the Four Purushatas can be loosely translated as the four aims in life, and we will go a little bit into it. Yeah, And then the Buddhist tradition, there are the Four Noble Truths. Now, what are the common thread that thread these three together? Is that we all, one way or another, have some form of a dissatisfaction about our life. And we are all looking to come out of this kind of dissatisfaction. Commonly, we call this kind of a dissatisfaction dukkha, yeah, or in many translations, yeah, especially in the Buddhist tradition, dukkha has been translated to be the word suffering, which I don't really like to sort of narrow it down to that. Yeah, dukkha can be anything that is unsatisfactory, that is unfulfilled. Yeah, that of course causes some kind of suffering. Yeah, or anything that you feel that is lacking. Okay, so it has a very broad connotation of all the mismatch, all the action or in our life. Okay, so we all in a way have to face with this reality of dukkha, and we all have to look for ways to come out of it to achieve some kind of eternal happiness, you can say, yeah, or eternal wholesomeness of life or perfection of life. Okay, and then in the Buddha's teaching, this is definitely very clear, because in the Fourth Noble Truth, you have the truth of dukkha. Yeah, that dukkha is the dissatisfaction that we have to face as one of our reality in life. Yeah, no matter you are rich, you are poor, you are knowledgeable, you are a beggar, you know, everybody, yeah, across the social strata, across geographical location, in any part of that social strata, everybody, yeah, in a way, lead a life that has to face with dissatisfaction one way or another. Yeah. So the truth of the causes of dukkha. So in Buddhist teaching, they talk about the three causes of dukkha, and then there is a truth of the end of dukkha, which means that, well, yes, there is dissatisfaction, there is different kinds of suffering and unfulfilled desire, but there is a way to end this. Okay, and then the truth of the path leading to the end of dukkha, which in this context is the Noble Eightfold Path that is prescribed by the Buddha, and but we are not going to go into that. Yeah, there's too much. But prescribing a methodology, yeah, a methodology which is the Noble Eightfold Path that will overcome all the different kinds of dukkha. Now, in Patanjali's teaching, we also see the same thing, heyam dukkham anagatam. So, heyam dukkham anagatam means that we should practice in a way to avoid the dissatisfaction that has not arisen, yeah, in us. Okay, so this in the chapter 2 of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. And then the four Purushatas, Purushatas. So Purushatas means the purpose of life or aims of life. So the first one is Dharma. Yeah. So in the Vedic tradition, they believe that human life, yeah, there must be four goals, yeah, or four mission of life. Okay, and I don't really like to see this as four stages. There are people that talk about four stages of life. I don't really like to look at it in that way, because the four aims of life can go in tandem at any part of your life. Yeah, at any part of your life, but it may not be practiced the same way. The methodology may change, but in any part of your life, or any human life, the four can coexist, yeah, and be practiced. Okay, so the four aims or purpose of life, the first one is Dharma, the second one is Artha, Karma, and Moksha. So the first one, So in antiquity time, they believed that one should know one's duty, yeah, according to maybe the strata of the society, according to the demands of the family, according to your own trade. You must know what is your personal responsibility and live accordingly, yeah, to fulfill one's duty. So the highest of this dharma, of course, dharma may not in this way, yeah, dharma is being broadened into the scope of you can say universal law, yeah. We are not talking about sort of like the dharma of the Buddha, no Buddhist connotation. So dharma means knowing one's purpose and knowing the universal law, ultimately, yeah, as the highest form of dharma to guide us in living this life. The second thing that you need to know is artha, which is all the skill and knowledge to be able to support yourself and your family. So this would mean like maybe in modern time, going to school, going to university, getting a job, yeah. But in the ancient time, it means you follow someone with knowledge who you recognize as your guru. So either he teach you some form of the skills, yeah, or some form of scriptures, to allow you to be able to survive in this society. And karma is that you need to actually have passion and to also have pleasure in life. Yeah. So in this case, it a lot of time it means going through finding a life partner, understanding the fulfillment of a marriage life. Yeah. It also means that you need to develop some kind of a passion in this life. Yeah. So there are two things here. One is to develop some kind of interest and develop your passions over it. And the other part is more about looking for a life partner and understanding how to have a fulfilled marriage life, okay, as a responsible partner, yeah, to your life partner. And then of course this context, yeah, how to fulfill have a complete role or how to make your life partner complete in itself. There is a whole teaching on that on the Kama Sutra. Again, I'm not going into that, yeah, but this really is a whole teaching on how to be a complete lover to your life partner, okay? And then eventually moksha, which is that, if you know what your personal responsibility in your family, in your society, if you have the skill to acquire to live successfully in this life, and you also know how to develop a passion and have a fulfilling marriage life, then the last thing you need to actually complete yourself is to understand the need and the requirement to look for liberation. So this historical time frame in my last lecture on trying to reconcile between Indian and Chinese yoga, we have done this. Yeah, but it's to quickly give you again this timeline to let you know that, why Hatha Yoga and Sex evolved, yeah, is because of the rise of Buddhist Tantra and Shiva Tantra, okay? And I put it in this way that the Buddhist Tantra comes first and the Shiva, it might not be, we need further research to see, but from documents, yeah, from any valid documents, this seems to be the case that we have the most ancient text of the Buddhist Tantra but we have not seen a Shiva Tantra that is earlier than the Buddhist Tantra, so we don't know. Okay, so basically about 1,500 years after the passing away of the Buddha, there is a rise of the idea of Tantra. Okay, so this is probably the maybe in the 5th or the 6th century. Yeah, and then that influences many teachings, including Buddhist teaching, including like Vedanta. Yeah, all the Vedic traditions also is being disturbed or in a way evolved and shaken by tantric ideas. Yeah, so just to leave it as that. And some of the earliest, some of the earliest Hatha Yoga texts, yeah, that we can find, yeah. So the Amrita Siddhi, yeah, the Dattatreya Yoga Sastra, Viveka, Manata, and the Goraksha Shataka, the Kechari Vidya, Yoga Bija, and Shiva Samhita. Now, I want to show you this because there is something that is quite consistent in the argument, yeah, that is quite important for our discussion. In all this discussion, it comes to this idea that there is a bindu that needs to be preserved, yeah. So this is forming the cornerstone or the key foundation of how to actually work the Hatha Yoga eventually. Now you can say that, you know, in the presentation of Hatha Yoga Pratipika, where it first have asana, pranayama, then comes into the mudra, yeah, everything in a way is subsumed in the practice of mudra, which means that whatever kind of asana you do, whatever kind of pranayama you do, eventually they are preparations for the mudra. Why? The mudra is the one that actually arouses the Kundalini. Okay, so this is the fundamental argument and consistency, yeah, that we see in a lot of these texts. So at the end of the day, the discussion of the mudra clearly depicts or distinguishes Hatha Yoga tradition with the rest of the tradition, because there is a high emphasis on the practice of mudra. Yeah, and in Hatha Yoga tradition, mudra is especially important for arousing, yeah, the Kundalini. Okay, and I don't want to go too much into that because there are two parts into the practice. One is to arouse the Kundalini. Yeah, one is to be able to force the uprising of this Kundalini. Yeah, so apparently there are two different methodologies. Yeah, so which has to be distinguished. Okay, and so there is a lot of discussion on like, okay, you have to work on the mudras and the bandhas. You have to preserve some kind of a bindu or a storage of this amrita, or loosely we talk about preserving of the nectar, but what really is this nectar? Yeah, and therefore all the techniques eventually in the 3rd chapter of Hatha Yoga Pratipika, they teach how to preserve this kind of essence, yeah, life essence, you can say. So Hatha Yoga Dipika in chapter 1, okay, I just want to go through this to give you a little bit of background. So Yogi Swatma Rama is the one that compiled Hatha Yoga Dipika, but we never know if he actually practices everything that was documented and compiled in this text. Yeah, all we can say about him is that he is very good in taking over about 20 different Hatha Yoga text and compiled into Hatha Yoga Dipika. But did he truly accomplish all the practices in there? We will never know. Okay, and a lot of these verses are exact copy from other texts, which the researchers can bring reference to. Yeah, so in a way, he cut and paste something, and put into this particular text of his own. Okay, so he say, Swama Rama explains the science of Hatha for one reason, which is Raj Yoga. Yeah, so this is in chapter 1, which means that the whole idea of practicing Hatha Yoga, what's the purpose? Is for Samadhi. Okay, Raj Yoga, which is another name given to Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Yeah. Then Hatha is the sanctuary for those suffering every type of pain. So it has to do with relieving of suffering, dissatisfaction. Yeah. So this idea of dukkham, yeah, which again is very consistent in the antiquity time of India. Yeah, we are looking for solution that will help us, will help us to relieve our suffering. Then it is the foundation of those practicing every type of yoga. Asanas are described first because they are the first step of Hatha. Okay, so this is his argument. They give steadiness, health, and lightness of the body. Okay, I will describe some asana endorsed by Vaishista and other stages and by Masyendra and other yogis. So he is compiling all the 15 postures that has been described in this text from various traditions. So you have the traditions of Vaishista, Masyendra, and others. And then in chapter 2, he say, after mastering asana, the yogi possessing self-control and eating a suitable moderate diet should practice pranayama as taught by his guru. So the second step, is after you have mastered the asana, you have to continue to practice the pranayama. So this second step. When the breath is unsteady, the mind is unsteady. When the breath is steady, the mind is steady, and the yogis become steady. Therefore, one should restrain the breath. So the idea of restraining the breath keep coming up in this chapter, which then we have to relook at the idea of pranayama in the context of Hatha Yoga. So it really means, in the context of Hatha Yoga, I'm talking about, so it may not always be, but in the context of Hatha Yoga, pranayama is actually all about restraining the breath, or breath control, you can say. As long as there is breath in the body, there is life. Death is the departure of breath. Therefore, one should restrain the breath. So again, this idea, restrain the breath. When the nadis are disrupted by impurities, the breath doesn't enter the middle. The middle here means the Sushumna or the central channel. How can Ummani, Ummani means the state of bliss exists. How can the goal be attained? So if the nadis are disrupted and are impure, then the breathing will never be able to enter the center. So the third chapter, which getting very interesting, as the Lord of Serpents supports the earth and its mountain and forest, so Kundalini supports all yoga practices. So this is some kind of a picture, that he is giving, to say that the Kundalini is the main support, or is the base and the foundation of all yoga practices. So the clear path becomes the royal road for prana. So if the Kundalini is arising, is successful, and is clear, then this becomes the royal path or the royal road for prana. Okay, so this is the passageway for the prana. And the mind is without objects, then death is strict. So what is this purpose of rising the Kundalini? So here is very clear, it's telling you that if this happens, and the prana is taking this royal road for prana, then the mind is without object, then death is strict. That means you can achieve immortality. Yeah, there are these are the 10 mudras. So he go on, he talk about all the 10 mudras which together destroy old age and death. Okay, so there is a big discussion in all Hatha Yoga texts, about immortality, about being able to be so strong and have a perfect body, yeah, that you can achieve immortality, that you are able to defy aging and death. Okay, so again in Hatha Yoga Pratipika, yeah, you see very clearly, but not only in this chapter, in the chapter of Pranayama, chapter 2, you see all these promises of against old age if you practice Uddiyana Bandha and all that. Yeah, so here the 10 mudras: Mahamudra, Mahabandha, Mahaveda, Kichari, Uddiyana, Mulabandha, Jalandalabandha, Viparita Karani, Badroli, and Shakti Chalana. So these are the 10 mudras to be practiced. Yeah, these are taught by Shiva. They are divine, cherished by all masters, hard to attain even by the gods, and give the 8 powers. Yeah, so it's a kind. That means there are 8 different kinds of siddhis that you can achieve if you are able to practice all of them. Then strive to keep them secret as if they were a box of jewel. Like sex with a respectable woman, don't talk about them to anyone. So in this, there already, yeah, there is that shadow, yeah, a connotation of text, a connotation of sex behind the mudra practice. So here, the respectable woman, yeah, if we go back to the original Sanskrit word for this, it does suggest that this woman is someone who is experienced in sex. Okay, so I'll just leave it as that. So I want to talk more about the Kichari, because the Kichari is the one that has a lot of, occupy a lot of space in chapter 3. Yeah, the yogis who holds the tongue up for even half a second is safe from poison, disease, death, old age, and so on. Yeah, the mind moves in space, the tongue enters space. Therefore, the name Kichari was chosen. The semen does not flow, even when embraced by a passionate woman. Yeah, so here suggesting that the yogi is actually having sex with the women. Okay, so what is embraced by a passionate woman? It suggests that the actual sexual practice is happening and the women's body is moving. Yeah, so there is that connotation there. Even when the semen flows and reach the region of the sexual organ of the male, yeah, in this case, it is arrested by yoni mudra and carried forcefully upwards. Okay. And the other mudra that is very interesting that is related to sex is Badroli Muda. I have a picture of this ritual kind of weapon, you can say, in Vajrayana, that also depicts, yeah, sometimes it has the connotation and the symbol of the male sexual organ. Okay, it's just like the lingam, yeah, in Shiva Tantra. So the yogi who knows Vajroli receives power even when living without inhibition or niyamas. They are spoken of by yoga. So there is this idea that if you understand how to practice Badroli Mudra, yeah, this yogi is free from having the need to have precepts, yeah, or practice of precepts, vows and rules, such as yamas and niyamas that was stated, yeah, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. And there are many yamas and niyamas in various texts which form the rule of the community or the precepts of the community. Yeah, it's not only yamas and niyamas by Patanjali, but different schools have their own yamas and niyamas. But here it gives you the idea that if the yogi actually knows how to perform the Badroli and knows how to execute, then he can live without inhibitions of all these kind of rules and precepts. Slowly and carefully practice drawing up when the semen flows. Yeah, so this has to be done by the male. A man, even a woman, will obtain success in Badroli. So here, this mudra can be done both by men and women, yeah, as a practice. Practice bringing upward the semen that is flowing into the women, yeah, genital organs. Draw up and preserve one's own flowing semen. Okay, so there are two different kinds of practices. The point before that is an external practice. This is an internal practice. Okay, so the knower of yoga should preserve his semen and therefore conquers death. So this is the primary idea. If you know how to preserve the semen, then you can overcome death, or sometimes it's known as you trick death. Yeah, you can trick death and you don't have to die. Emission of semen is death, preservation of semen is life. If a woman draw up the semen of a man and preserve her seminal fluid with Badroli, then she too is a yogini. Yeah, so you can call this kind of a woman a yogini, a women practitioner of yoga. She knows the past and the future and surely moves in the sky. Okay, so it is this picture of this woman flying. Okay, yeah, if she is able to practice this successfully, she has this kind of a power. One obtains bodily perfection by practicing Badroli. So it is a belief that you will be as strong as a Vajra. Yeah, Badroli comes from the word Vajra, which means an indestructible weapon. Yeah, so again, as I said, have the connotation of the male sexual organ, or similar to the idea of lingam. This yoga produces merits and gives liberation, even though pleasure is enjoyed. So again, coming back to the idea that anyone who is successful in practicing Hatha Yoga, they can have a cake and eat it. Yeah, meaning to say that you can actually enjoy everything, including sexual pleasure in life, and yet attain liberation. So I'm going to form my conclusion here. There's a couple, yeah. So this is a picture of Shiva and Parvati, yeah. And again, it denotes that kind of a sexual union, yeah. Hatha Yoga is beyond asana. Everything is in preparation of the mudra, yeah. So the mudra eventually leads to samadhi. Yeah, so again, this point came out strongly in chapter 4 of Hatha Yoga Dipika. Yeah, perfect health. Yeah, so the word is arogyam. Yeah, immortality and to trick death is some of the key cornerstone idea of practicing Hatha Yoga. So if you ask someone Hatha Yoga and say, why you have to practice Hatha Yoga? So these are the three main goals and objectives. Yeah, Kichari and Badroli are part of sexual union practices for controlling of semen emission and the rise of Kundalini. Yeah, so in order to be successful in arousing and sustaining, yeah, this Kundalini, you need to know the mudra, and especially the Kichari and the Badroli. Yeah, reverting energy to confront the creation of life. Yeah, so in yoga, yeah, we see, especially when you look at this, they say, oh, preserve the semen, preserve the semen. Yeah, you should not let the semen flow out of the body. So what does it mean? It means reverting the energy to confront the creation of life. Yeah, sex as one of the most powerful force, passion, and source of attachment of our body. So if you then can revert that, yeah, and preserve that, yeah, and come into facing, yeah, confronting that gives and produce life, then you are a real yogi. Yeah. So this idea is not limiting to Hatha Yoga, but also widely discussed in traditional Taoist alchemy. Yeah, which if I have time, you know, somewhere now down the future, we can actually have a discussion on this one. So as the Taoist says, There is a Taoist saying, one needs to accumulate, sorry of the spelling, accumulate wealth, knowledge, and partner. So because again, the Taoist, a lot of text is tilted towards a male practitioner. So you need to have a female partner. An ideal site for Tao, that means you need to find an ideal location for your practice in order for Tao to be successful. Okay, so these are this is to tell you, yeah, that sexual practices does not only exist in Hatha Yoga. Yeah, it also is widely discussed in Taoist practices. Okay, so I'll now open for discussion with a couple of minutes. And if you'd like to ask a question, please unmute yourself. Mind-boggling, no? Are you practicing Hatha Yoga? That's my question to you. Are you practicing Hatha Yoga? So we all have to reconsider, you see. Yeah, so that's the problem. Many people actually do not go through, yeah, the scriptures and the text to understand in real context what that they are practicing. Yeah, so I'm really here to arouse idea and arouse question. Yeah, I'm not really giving you an answer, but I want you to have a broader idea and a broader understanding, a more complete understanding of yoga, especially coming from Hatha Yoga tradition. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of this talk and conversation. Question?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, please go ahead.
How come this worldwide understanding that it's when you are yogi, you don't have a partner, you don't have sex, the celibate,
yeah,
a child? How come that? Because everybody is talking that way.
Right. Now, number one is that we all have to understand there are always two traditions of yoga practice. Yeah. So if we can broadly categorize them, there is a big movement coming from the renunciate community. Yeah. And a lot of time even today in India, yeah, from medieval time antiquity until today, Indians continue to believe, yeah, have this idea that if you are a renunciate, somehow you are more superior as a yogi, So there is this I would say expectation, yeah, from the common people. Yeah, so if you practice yoga and if you are a monk, wow, you are sort of like you are super yogi or something. Yeah, so this is coming from the expectation of the society. Okay, and also a lot of the people that are propagating, yeah, coming out to propagate this kind of teachings, usually, yeah, they are celibates. Okay, they are the renunciate and they are more well known. Okay, while when you talk about the Hatha Yoga community, yeah, especially if you do your research on the 84 Mahasiddhas, yeah, they are all great accomplished yogis, but they are unknown in the society. Okay, so their community, so sometimes we call this community the Kulau, very, very small. Okay, they keep only to a family concept. Yeah, they don't go out to propagate something. Yeah, they are very careful in selecting their disciple. Okay, so their whole mission is to keep the tradition alive to people who wants to practice them. They are not here to propagate and make themselves more famous. So there is a great distinction between household practitioner, yeah, and renunciate. Renunciate always have this idea that they have an added dimension of responsibility, which is to awaken everyone in the society. And therefore, they always come out, build huge temples, yeah, which is not done by the Kulau, yeah, individuals who are practicing this secretly and quietly and influencing their community in a very small way. They don't build huge temple, have a lot of people come into the temple and give satsang. They don't do that. Yeah. So that is one of the biggest difference that we see. Yeah. And therefore, when they come out to speak, they give a very biased idea that if you want to be successful in yoga, you should not have sex, and you should be sannyasin. You should also become a monk. Yeah, but clearly we don't see it in any of these Hatha Yoga texts. Okay, yeah. So also this idea of brahmacharya, yeah, which narrowly we can say, yeah, you see in yamas and niyamas of Patanjali, you have the ideas of brahmacharya. But brahmacharya, if you just narrowly defining brahmacharya to say that is a person that is celibate and not have sex, yeah. So that's one interpretation, yeah. So brahmacharya could also means that this person has ability to control his sexual desire. It may not be that he's not having sex. Okay. Now then there is everything has pro and cons in the bright side and the dark side. Okay, there are many masters, yeah, that they come out, look like a monk, renunciate and all that, but requesting sex to their disciple. Yeah, so we have heard many of this, and then we think in a very sort of negative connotation of all these masters. Yeah, we have that. Yeah, because externally they look like they are renunciate, but internally they are tantric practitioner. Yeah, and this again is a big problem. Is a big problem in modern society where people are lacking the idea of tantra. Yeah, they don't really understand the nature of this kind of practices, and they don't understand that even, yeah, so if you are renunciate, if you are monk, if you are renunciate, and depending on the order of the sampradaya, so that the lineage that you come from, yeah, there are certain liberation of that person. When he wants to practice the tantra, he has a partner, but a dedicated partner. Yeah, but in most of his time, he will be seen as a renunciate, yeah, which is sort of confusing. So if you don't really have that tantric outlook, you won't understand this, and you will be totally confused. So it really depends on the lineage. Yeah, it really depends on the lineage. So there are lineage that say, no, this is a pure, sort of pure, but you know, you see, I'm more influenced by Taoist idea, okay? And I believe that karma, yeah, which is loosely translated as desire, passion, yeah, that kind of idea, they are a kind of energy. And this energy cannot be suppressed. Yeah, this energy has to be expressed. Yeah, and in many times, if this person do not know how to transform this energy, yeah, it can cause some kind of a psychological issue. Yeah, so the Taoist is very liberal and open about this, to say that one is not to suppress desire, is not to sort of push and you do not give an acknowledgement to this. Yeah, so you tell yourself you forget about this. The Taoist is very positive in saying that you should embrace this and confront this. Yeah. So especially the original Taoist, or what I call traditional Taoist alchemy, that predates the influence of Buddhist teaching. Okay, so there is a later form of Taoist practices that was influenced by the dominance of Buddhism. Yeah, because in the later part of the 7th century in China, Buddhist teaching was overriding everything. Yeah, and that also causes some pushback into the original idea of Taoist teaching. Okay, so Taoists also changed their idea later on. But if you look at the original Taoist idea, they are very liberal in sex. Okay, it has to be understood as a form of energy, as I said. Number one is to understand that this is what creates life, and therefore it underlies huge amount of energy and potentiality. Okay, so how are you going to allow yourself to truthfully come into this reality, embracing this part of you and come out of that? Yeah, so this is a very important idea, which is what Hatha yogis wants to do. Yeah, it's not to cover up and under the carpet and say, let's not talk about this. But they say, we have methods. We have this way, to sort of help you in the practice. Yeah, to allow you to face this. Yeah, to allow you to confront this truthfully. Yeah, so that you can transcend, and not be disturbed by this idea. Okay, and you see in the Puranas. Okay, you see it all in Puranas are stories, Yeah, so in a lot of collection in the Puranas, in the Indian literature, talk about how Shiva make love to Parvati, and then Parvati die, and she come back as Sita, and again they make love, and then Sita die, come back as Uma. So, yeah, there are many layers of that meaning, actually. There are many layers of that meaning, yeah. So I invite you to investigate. I invite you to open up yourself to really understand this subject a little bit deeper. Yeah. So, okay, I think I only have time this much today. Yeah. Thank you very much for your participation. And if you have questions, you can always write to us. Yeah. And I look forward in sharing more with you. Hopefully the next time when we have the next discussion is on cultivation of life force from Taoist perspective. Okay, so thank you very much. Namaste. I see you in the practice, or I see you next time. Yeah, thank you.